Do you want Instagrammers or TikTokers to post about your brand? Or do you actually want to engage creators who influence their audience to buy your product? If you're in the latter of those two, you've come to the right place. Welcome to Winfluence, the Influence Marketing Podcast. Hello again, friends. Thanks for tuning in to Winfluence, the Influence Marketing Podcast. What are your goals? More importantly, do you write them down? How often do you refer to them? Or are you like me and have vague ideas of what you want to accomplish in your head, but they kind of morph and change depending upon the day? Certainly, we're more disciplined about business goals. They typically have to be articulated in strategies and presentations, discussed in meetings and conference calls, probably ad nauseum. But they're important to have, to revisit frequently, and to refer to when making strategic decisions for your business. Debra Eckerling is a goals strategist. She helps entrepreneurs, executives, and employees identify and make a plan for personal and professional goals. She's even got a clever methodology, the DEB Method. That is spelled out in her book, Your Goal Guide. Now, I'm familiar with Deb because her weekly live stream show and podcast called The DEB Show is a sister podcast of this one on the Marketing Podcast Network. I've had the pleasure of sitting in on her weekly themed discussion. It's well worth the subscription, the links to which we'll post in the show notes of this episode. But Debra is also an influencer away from the marketing space too. She's a foodie writer and podcaster as well. Her show, Taste Buds with Deb, digs into her culinary side with guests to discuss and debate various food-related topics. It's distributed by the Jewish Journal, where she has been a contributor for a while. Whether you're a brand or agency marketer, a service provider in the influencer space, or a content creator, you could certainly use a refresher on goal setting and goal getting. So I asked Deb to join us this week to talk about goals, the DEB method, and her experiences as a foodie creator. We'll probably get hungry and set a goal of satiating that need on today's show. As always, this episode of Winfluence is presented by Scipio.ai. We are helping brands transform their digital marketing with user-generated content, videos, and images at scale. Why? Shopify data shows user-generated content quadruples your ad click-through rates. UGC drives as much as 7 times more engagement on social media. UGC improves website conversions by 29% and email click-through rates by 73%. UGC is also more trusted by consumers than even traditional influencer content, and Scipio.ai is building the next generation of visual content management solutions. Generative AI for images and videos. And folks, this is not 2024, a future state, or even late 2023. I've seen the prototypes. While we fully bake that, Scipio.ai can plug you into your own community of users, find those who create great content, and help you engage them to do it for your brand. Your digital marketing performs better. You don't have to go looking for content to use for paid or owned campaigns. And we've got a team to manage it all for you if you want. Come see us at Scipio.ai if you would like for me personally to show you the platform and how we can solve your digital marketing performance problems with high-performing UGC. Just go to jasonfalls.co/Scipio. Fill out that form and I will personally set up time to chat with you. That's jasonfalls.co/Scipio. Seriously, we can make your marketing perform better and take a handful of problems off your hands. Visit me, jasonfalls.co/Scipio. We'll set up a time to talk. I'll show you the platform. Love it or hate it, you'll at least get to see it. Let's set some goals and learn a method to do so with style. Debra Eckerling and the DEB Method are next on Winfluence. Deb, I had such a fun time sitting in on the DEB Show recently to talk about storytelling. Thank you for having me on the show. We'll make sure we put links to that episode, my little cameo there in the show notes today. But tell folks about the DEB Show, because you've got a really nice approach and style to the show that makes it, I think, a little different from a lot of other discussion shows. So what's the story behind the DEB Show?
Well, you asked me 2 different questions, so I will answer both of them simultaneously.
Okay.
So every Monday every Monday, I bring together 3 friends, experts, to dive into the topic of the week. And it's really a fun, motivating, inspirational conversation that we all have, and we let other people's either tune in or listen. So we go on as Goal Chat Live, and then it magically becomes an episode of the DEB Show podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network. And the way that my show has evolved is really fun, because when I started it like 3 years ago, and it was before it was even a podcast, it was just Goal Chat Live. This was spring 2020, my first pandemic project, and I just, wanted to have deeper conversations, and it was great. But at the end of 2020, I wanted to have a New Year's party, and how do you do that when you can't see people?
Yeah.
Well, basically, you throw people who don't know each other together.
Uh-huh.
So I did that show, and it was great. And then I said, this is kind of fun. I'm going to do one of these a month. And then by mid 2021, I'm like, nah, I'm just going to do them all this way, because it really is. It's a great way to introduce people to each other.
Yep.
And also to each other's audiences. And the thing that, I love a lot of things about my show, but one of the things that I love most about it is usually they don't know each other, and you can't tell, because the moment the conversation starts, everybody's just so into it and playing off each other. So it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. And I had a really good time on the show. So if you're interested in storytelling, which most of the people who watch and listen to this show are, you'll enjoy that link. It'll give you a nice introduction to the DEB Show if you haven't seen it already. And certainly do subscribe. And it's always good to tell the Winfluence audience about another show on the Marketing Podcast Network. So again, we'll make sure the links are in the show notes. If you want to go now, you can. The debmethod.com is her main website. You can find it there. All right. Deb, before we get into the conversation about goals, I want to hear more of your story. We know you're a goal expert. We know you have the DEB Show podcast. I told folks in the intro that you also have a food podcast, which we'll touch on. But how did Debra Eckerling become the Deb, as it were? Give us a little of that career path to know where you came from.
Well, I started out, I did events for Barnes & Noble. And this back when I lived in Chicago, and I've been in LA for over 20 years, so you do as much math as you want. And whenever I needed to fill my calendar, I just hang out in the cafe, because I wanted it to be a community bookstore. Yeah. And one day, one of my regulars said, will you start a writer support group? And I said, if you think people will show up, sure, let's give it a shot. And it was a hit. But more important than that, it taught me the power of goal setting and accountability firsthand, because for me, that's what a writer support group was. Is what did you accomplish? What are you working on? How can we support you? What are your goals for next time? And so fast forward, moved to LA, restarted the group. And then people would say, hey, Deb, you're good at this. Can I hire you to help me finish my book? Someone who'd been for years trying to get his book done, we got it done in 3 months.
Nice.
Or you're good at this. Will you speak at my event? So that's how it really evolved from this fun thing I did into more so. Yeah. And then in 2018, so my background is communications and project management. My main client was going away, so I took this as an omen. This is a sign to really step into what I believe I was meant to do, which is help people figure out what they want and how to get it so they can live better, more fulfilled lives. And my mom said to me, well, you hate SMART goals. Why don't you create DEB goals? And I said,
nice.
My initials worked with this system that I've been teaching for years.
Yeah.
So that's how I went from Deb to Deb. And Deb stands for determine your mission, explore your options, brainstorm your path. You can't get what you want unless you know what that is, which is determine your mission. I'm saying this backwards, but you're all smart. You can follow. Explore your options is about you have this mission, but what does that mean for you? Because you can go in so many different directions. And then brainstorm your path is making that plan, putting it out there, following it, and turning those dreams, those intentions, those goals into reality. So I rebranded as Deb in 2018. And then a few months later, and I really love this story. So I led this live group for many years. And one of my regulars had a goal to do more networking. Well, she ended up at an event sitting next to this agent who she referred to me because of my group. We had a conversation. It turned out we had met several years before because he spoke at an event I attended. He's like, "What's your goal?" I said, "Well, to be the first person people think of when they hear the word goal. That's, dream big."
There you go.
Send me your book proposal. So toward the end of 2018, Mango showed interest in my book, which came out in January 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 weeks before we all had change by circumstance, out came my book designed to help people embrace change by choice or by circumstance, because change, it's a choice a lot of the time. And we all deserve to live that happier, more fulfilled life.
Yeah, that's very true. So you and I share a history, a unique history of having launched books right before the pandemic, because Winfluence launched in February of that year. So selling books in a pandemic is not fun and is a lot of work. So go get her book and make up for it a little bit, folks.
And one of the blessings, as I call them, of the pandemic, so I went pretty well seamlessly. I was speaking at a writers event over that last weekend, the end of February, beginning of March.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few days later, I was getting those emails, "Hey, Deb, will you do your workshop? Help motivate people," which is really what I spent at least the first maybe year or two of the pandemic doing, is telling people that this cosmic pause was a good thing, because it was an opportunity to rethink your life and see what you need to and or can do to make your life better. I mean, really simple, right?
It really was a linchpin point for a lot of people to stop and reassess their priorities. And I mean, I think it probably became that even more so as time went on, and we weren't going back to normal after 3 or 4 weeks, and people were like, well, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Right. So just a really, even though it was inconvenient for most of us, including you were in the right place at the right time and took advantage of the opportunity, and good for you. So I want to ask you this question. How poorly do most people set and manage goals?
I could answer that, but I would sound kind of judgy.
That's what you're the expert, though. That's what I'm asking for. I mean, how many people need you?
Okay. Everybody needs me, right? Well, and this is the thing. I have people come up to me all the time. They say, "I don't like the word goal." Okay, what do you want from my life? Well, my intention is this. Well, guess what? That is a goal. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think the word goal is a 4-letter word. It is, but not the bad kind, the good kind, right? And this is one of my favorite examples. So several years ago, a friend said to me, beginning of the year, I write down all my goals, I put them in a drawer, and then at the end of the year, I look at my list and see if I accomplished anything. So it took me a minute to recover, put my chin off the floor and all that. And I said, do me a favor. Humor me. What would happen if you actually looked at your goals throughout the year? I said, okay, I'll try it. And wouldn't you know, she was more successful that year than she had in the past, and continues to get more done because she knows what she's working towards. And that's goes back to what I was saying before. You can't get what you want unless you know what that is.
Right.
And that starts with first claiming the time and the energy and the decision. Okay, I'm going to make my life better. Yep. Then you figure out what that means for you. Then you can put a plan into action. But it starts with choosing yourself. And most people, they're too busy, right? Yeah. Chasing the next thing, or I have to do this and I have to do that. Well, what if you just kind of took a minute and thought about what you were working towards? Mm-hmm. You would be much more successful with that kind of plan in place.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Before we take a break, I want you to kind of reset, go through the DEB method one more time, give us the 3 points and explain them a little bit. And then we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to try to apply that to the people that are listening, which are a range of people who are brand managers, people who work at agencies, software companies, that service the influence marketing space, and then content creators as well. So take us through the DEB method one more time. DEB, what's it stand for? What do they mean?
So D, determine your mission. You can't get what you want unless you know what that is. It starts with visualizing the future you want, take an inventory of where you are, where you want to go, but also create that all important mission, which is about who you are, what you do, and most importantly, how you help. And then shorten it into a motto, something fun and snappy that really embodies all that you are, right? And so mine is goal setting simplified. So everything I create is on that goal setting simplified, because changing your life is challenging enough. The instructions need to be easy, so I made them really easy. So that's the D, determine your mission.
Okay.
Next is explore your options, because you've got these big dreams for yourself. You've got this great visualization, but what does that mean as an influencer? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to start a blog, a podcast, video cast? What is it that you are going to do to get the you and your knowledge out there? And so that requires some exploration. We start with directed journaling, which is my take on journaling, which is basically set a few 15-minute appointments with yourself. Don't look at your notes, but during that, each of those sessions, just kind of brain dump what is very specific to what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, I want to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Oh, I love bread. What can I do to put bread into my marketing? Or whatever sort of twisty road your brain goes on, right? So you do that. Once you finish the exercise, you could read through it and find the common themes. The things that you write about more are the ones that you're going to put more passion behind. So you can go through your list and see what the top 3 or 5 are, do some research, see what needs to be done to get it done, and then choose where you're going to go. And these are personal goals as well as professional goals. What do you want/need to do to get to, I call it Goaltopia, living the life you want, achieving your goals. And then B is brainstorm your path. You know what you want, put all those goals out there: personal, professional, long-term, short-term, reach, easy goals, divide, conquer, make a plan, give yourself deadlines, set yourself up for success. Boom, you're there. See? Easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe not easy, but easy instructions.
Yeah, they're easy instructions. You still have to put the work in. So there's no such thing as an easy button. Thank you for ruining that for us, Staples. No, that's good. Okay, so we have the DEB method explanation. When we come back on Winfluence, we're going to dig into it a bit more and talk about how you brands, agencies, or content creators can use it in your day-to-day work. Then we're going to talk about some food. So don't go away. Welcome back to Winfluence. Debra Eckerling is here to help us set our goals and learn the DEB method to doing so. Deb, before the break, we went through the DEB method. Now let's dig in and into the meat here. How can we, either as marketers or content creators or business owners, how can we not just sort of implement the DEB method and use that as a guide, but have the wherewithal to follow through and execute on it? Because my problem is the latter of those pieces. Is I can sit down and brainstorm and write up, some charts and put, sayings on the wall, but it's the actual execution of starting every day and remembering to stop and revisit those things that is my problem. So how do we do that? How do we get around the execution hurdles?
Well, the first thing you need to do, and then we can dig a little bit more, is to put the time on your calendar to work through the steps. So I would imagine anybody tuning in, they've got their business, they're looking to level it up. But if you haven't taken the time for that visual of where you want your business to go, or the mission for you and or your business / motto, gift yourself that time, because that is like the best decision tree on earth. This is what I did my TEDx on, was the magic of your motto, because opportunities are going to come your way. I mean, that's a good thing, but it can also be overload. And if you want the perfect way to figure out if something is alignment, that's what your motto is for. That's what that mission will help. So if something comes your way, you can ask yourself very easily, is this in alignment? If yes, then yes. If no, then is there another benefit towards this partnership or relationship or whatever it is? If yes, then yes. If no, then you really have to decide, is it worth your time? Because being able to say no to something that isn't a fit is saying yes to yourself, but it also gives someone else an opportunity to say yes, where it's more alignment for them.
Very nice. So is it about what is it about the other methodologies that makes them so complicated? Like, I took the course on getting it done once upon a time, but that involved paperwork and a desk planner and a bunch of accoutrements that were basically trinkets to buy so David Allen or whoever could retire early. So it was so convoluted, I gave up after a week or so of trying. So what is it about them that is so complicated, and how did you drill through that?
Well, you pretty much stated it. You answered your own question, which is fine. I'm happy to elaborate. But for Deb, all you really need is a pen and a notebook and maybe calendar,
Right.
right? Or an electronic. The idea is people try so hard to figure things out in their head.
Mm-hmm.
You can't arrange things. I mean, apparently there are people who can arrange things in their head, and good for them, but most of us need to see it.
Right.
And that's and if we go through let me my brain is like firing on like 5 different things at once right now. But something like, okay, most goal setting experts, I'm using air quotes, they talk about the end result.
Right.
And the end result is important. But if you do not take the time to figure out your starting point and where you're going, you're going to go in circles. You're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of energy doing things that maybe aren't necessary.
Right.
But when you start with, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, and you can layer that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So for a marketing campaign, saying, I want to get, give me an example, because that always works better than when I make things up.
You want an example from me? Okay. I want to get more people to sign up for my event. How about that?
This is really funny. Would you believe I had this conversation earlier today with someone who asked me that same question?
Well, there you go. See, now you're ready.
There's the universe. Let me see. What did I tell him? Starting out, first of all, is who do you want to be there, right? And that's going to impact where you're going to promote it, how you're going to be on social. So let's say the long-term goal is to have, now the short-term goal is to have a lot of people attending your events consistently. Mm-hmm. Great. So the first benchmark is, what is the event? And you have to put the pieces in place and figure out, what is the purpose, what is the mission of the event, so people are going to want to attend, who is your audience, etc. So all those groundwork pieces will lead you to that first benchmark. The second part would be the messaging. Okay, what are you going to use for your invitation? What are you going to use for your social media posts? Are you going to use video? Are you going to use photos? So that would be more of the creative execution of it. And then the third part is your outreach. Where are you going to post? When are you going to post? What sort of relationships are you going to make with either the other speakers or people who are going to get the word out about your event? And then you can also probably do a mini within then, organic versus paid.
Right.
But by laying it all out there, okay, the goal is to get lots of people at your event. You have to create the event, you have to create the messaging, then you have to create the outreach. And all these plans work together to get you to that goal.
That's great. It follows, that fits into many people's description of strategic planning, for communications and marketing, but it certainly can fold very easily into determine your mission, explore your options, brainstorm your path. So good reminders for all of us. Okay. Before we let you go, I have to ask about Taste Buds. Tell us about it.
Well, Taste Buds is my new podcast, Taste Buds with Deb. and they are bite-sized conversation about food, cooking, and community. I am a reformed non-cook.
Okay.
I used to think cooking took too much time and energy, and it was just so much easier to dial for dinner.
Oh yeah.
And then about 6 years ago, I got my mom an Instant Pot, and she looked at it and said, "As part of my present, you figuring out how it works and
Nice.
cooking." And I'm
Good
like,
job,
okay,
Mom.
it was a gadget. Exactly. Well, so I did, I probably DEB methoded it as well. Okay, what is the goal? The goal is food. Where am I going to find the information? Well, I went on YouTube, I went on Facebook.
Yep.
And when I think about how big the Instant Pot subculture has grown, this was 6 years ago and it was huge. And what do I cook first? Make water. Okay. Boil an egg. Okay. Make mac and cheese. That was my first meal. But this is what I discovered, is that with the Instant Pot, you can put in ingredients and then get things done while it is cooking.
Yeah.
And so I do corporate work and workshops. I do a lot of virtual lunch and learns, because what I do, it's professional development, but with team building. Best of both worlds kind of merged together. And my newest is called Cooking for Productivity, because what's better for professional development with team building baked in than a conversation on food, cooking, and how it can make your life better. Anyway, so back to Taste Buds. I do some freelance writing for the Jewish Journal, and I do community and food. And because I do my other show, one day the podcast manager reached out and said, "Do you want to do a food podcast?" Well, don't have to ask me that one twice. And so what it turned out to be is these wonderful 15-minute conversations about food, community, and food, cooking, and community. And what's fun about it is it's not just talking to chefs.
Right.
It's people who are using food to build community, but mostly people who love food and see that all important connection.
Mm-hmm. That's good stuff. Well, and I noticed also too, the Jewish Journal has about 4 podcasts right now. So you're like a big star there. So very nice. Good stuff.
It's any opportunity I have to talk about food. And in starting the podcast, I remembered this article that I wrote in 2020 about the Instant Pot for productivity. So it's really kind of encouraged me to, and yes, I DEB methoded cooking for productivity to get that out there as well. And it's exciting. It's something new. It's something different. And we're in this world where most of us are at least partially, if not entirely, virtual.
Right.
And you need ways to connect your team. Why not do it in a way where you're going to learn something and get to talk about food? I mean, it's win-win-win. I mean, we're Winfluence. It's win-win-win, right?
Absolutely. That's good stuff. And you listen over there, and it'll Winfluence what you're going to have for dinner. And so speaking of, lather us up for later. What's the favorite dish you've either eaten or cooked lately?
My favorite thing to cook is chicken soup in the Instant Pot. And the reason is simple. You not only have chicken soup, you have chicken that you can turn into anything else.
It's a great point.
It is like the definite, right? It is the definition. And then you take your scraps, your veggie scraps from making the chicken soup, and you make some veggie broth.
Very good. Well, there you go.
Easy peasy. And I know we're recording this and it's summer and it's so warm, but any day is a good day for soup.
Sure. Excellent. Debra Eckerling, the DEB Method, the DEB Show. Remind folks where they can find you on the interwebs.
Well, I am at the DEB Method everywhere. So info@thedebmethod.com to email me, or go to thedebmethod.com/blog for the recaps and the replays of the show. And if you are tuning in and we are meeting, please send me a request with a note on LinkedIn, because you can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. Let's be each other's people.
There you go. We'll make sure there's links to all those things in the show notes. You can find that specific page at jasonfalls.co/Debra Eckerling, or go to jasonfalls.com, click on articles in the upper right and look for the episode with Debra there. Deb, thanks so much for joining us today. Give us a little goal setting kick in the pants. We appreciate it.
It is my absolute pleasure. Can I give homework?
Oh, please give homework. We need it.
Okay. Set a 30-minute appointment for yourself. Find a day, week, a time, and that's your check-in time every single week. So whatever it is that you're doing, these are your goals, maybe on top of the regular goals for your business. This is your time for yourself to assess what's next for you, what's working, and move forward to get to Goaltopia.
It's probably the best first step you can take in self-care. So go do that, folks. Deb, thanks so much. Good stuff there. Be sure to find all Deb's links and such in our show notes. Again, that will be at jasonfalls.co/Debra Eckerling, or go to jasonfalls.com, click on the articles in the upper right, and find the Debra Eckerling episode. Speaking of which, I'd like your feedback if we have a moment to chat here. I've been considering separating out the podcast episodes from jasonfalls.com and building a Winfluence podcast site in and of itself. Do you think that would be handy for you? If it would, I'd love your feedback. Just shoot me an email at jason@jasonfalls.com. I'm really and truly just looking for feedback. I'm considering it, but I haven't invested the time to really research it and do the pros and cons. So while I was at it talking to you today, I thought I would ask. So if a separate website for Winfluence is something that you would like to see, let me know. Drop me a line somewhere, either on the social networks. I'm Jason Falls everywhere, or you can send me an email, jason@jasonfalls.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with someone else who may as well. And if you're enjoying Winfluence overall, help us grow and tell someone about the show. You probably know someone who might want to know more about influence marketing. Send them to winfluencepod.com or share a link to this episode on your social network of choice. If you have a moment, drop a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. We are on them all. The show is now on video as well. Just look for Jason Falls Winfluence on YouTube to see the show as well as hear it. Winfluence is a production of Falls & Partners and presented by Scipio.ai. The technical production is by MPN Studios. Winfluence airs along MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. Thanks for listening, folks. Let's talk again soon on Winfluence.